Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Good morning. Welcome to another presentation on research methodology. Today we'll be focusing on qualitative research, and what I'm doing this time is to discuss qualitative research, to define qualitative research, and to present version of definition that is much deeper than the usual one-liner or a two-line definition of qualitative research. So it's a quality research that is based on deep definition. So let's go to our first slide. Qualitative research discovers its beauty and its power. So we are casting a big net, a wide net, to talk about qualitative research. Qualitative research, in a manner of speaking, in a way, it is a big net. Right? It's like going into the sea and then catching fish and exploring this wide ocean of knowledge. Yeah. So let's go and discover this beauty, the power behind qualitative research. Next slide. Why qualitative research, right? Now, Albert Einstein, one of the well-known scientists in the world, in history, said, "Not everything that can be counted counts. Not everything that counts can be counted. Not everything that can be counted counts. Not everything that counts can be counted." So the idea is to understand the world not just based on what can be counted or measured, but to understand the world substantively, to understand the world as it is, and to go deeper, wider, and to have much more appreciation of knowledge. And that is what qualitative research can offer us. Now let me go to a simple illustration to make a comparison between qualitative research and quantitative research. Right? I will not make a lot of comparison, but this is a way to help us understand qualitative research more deeply by showing the contrast to the quantitative research. Quantitative research question, for instance, this is an example. What percentage of postgraduate students complete their studies in less than 3 years after they have written a 20 to 25 page research methodology chapter? So you're interested in percentage, you're interested in students, a sampling size that is based on a criterion of students who have complete 3 years of their studies, based on a particular variable that is a written work on research methodology with a length of 20-25 pages. Right? So a lot of quantification there, a lot of almost precise quantification there, and you're interested in the percentage. Right? So you're looking at the percentage. Perhaps you'll be looking at the number of pages as independent variable and the percentage as dependent variable. And the intervening variable can be the number of years, or that itself can be also an independent variable. So it could be how you frame the research. So there are a lot of independent, a lot of variables here, and you can actually look at the connections or correlations, right, between variables, and that is very much quantitative research. Right? Contrast that with qualitative research question. How does the deep understanding of research methodology change the research experience of postgraduates pursuing studies in Malaysia? So, deep understanding. What is deep understanding? You want to see the change in research experience So, a qualitative aspect of research, right? And you're looking at a particular group of people, postgraduate students who are studying in Malaysia. So maybe there's some uniqueness, some characteristics and peculiarities of Malaysia that might also influence and shape this experience, the research experience. So this is a way to show the contrast between quantitative research and qualitative research, right? So just a quick comparison there. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide, again, reflecting back to qualitative research. So find a spot in the sea and cast a big net. Sometimes you don't know what you'll get. You might go home, you might go back with a big fish, a big catch, right? Or a variety of fish. Dive into the sea and you may see beneath the surface there are pearls and treasures. It is an ocean of abundance, a hidden world of wonder that you have yet to discover. And that is what qualitative research can offer. The richness of data, richness of information, the richness of variety of constructs, of knowledge, of experience that you can capture using this method that's called or methodology that's called qualitative research. Right? So let's go into the deep definition of qualitative research. What I'll do is I'll read through this deep definition of qualitative research, and then we'll walk through part by part. Yeah? There are basically 7 statements you are making here about qualitative research, defining qualitative research. Right? So, what is qualitative research? It is a type of research with roots in multiple methodological traditions that is based on a systematic inquiry design paradigm in order to enter the human worlds and to understand, to gather, to process, to organize, to interpret and present data. What type of data? Qualitative data. Data that has not been described or data that may go beyond numbers, meaning it can include numbers, but it can go beyond numbers. Or data that is not easily measurable using numbers, or data that do not appear as variables, independent variables or dependent variables, or data which relevancy is not yet determined. Yeah. Producing what? Producing qualitative descriptions that is deep, qualitative descriptions that may represent newly emerging realities, or hidden qualitative description, or a more comprehensive description. About what? About a theory, a phenomenon, a model, a system, a process, a paradigm, or a set of practices, or typologies, or about social, cultural, or psychological, or behavioral, or historical map of a social space. What kind of space? The space can be cultural, community, city, neighborhood, country, polity, individual. Individual can also be a space, or family, or behavioral pattern, or organizational, or structural, or economic tendency. So this is the deep definition of qualitative research. So let's go part by part to further understand about the deep definition of qualitative research. Right? So let's go for the first part. Right? Let's go to, so deep definition of qualitative research. Qualitative research is a type of research with roots in multiple traditions that is based on what? We'll go to the next slide after that. But it is a type of research that has multiple methodological traditions. It can come from the hermeneutics or phenomenology or ethnography or grounded theory. It can be rooted in case studies. So it has multiple roots. Just like the picture there, the mangrove tree has multiple roots, and the roots are strong. And this is actually a picture of mangrove trees in the Bujang Valley in Bujang Geopark, which is not too far away from USM, University of Science Malaysia, located in Bujang Valley. It is also the oldest civilization in Southeast Asia. And if you look at the picture there, the Sungai Batu structure, it is the oldest structure in Southeast Asia, dated back to 788 before Christ. If you come to Penang, you come to Universiti of Science Malaysia, you must go and visit this site. It is amazing. It predates all major religions, basically, right? It is a site that is still being discovered and unearthed by archaeologists, by world-renowned archaeologists. Right? So this represents the roots, I would say, and I take this as a metaphor to the idea of qualitative research, because qualitative research has multiple methodological traditions, rooted in many different traditions, strong traditions as well. We go to the next one. Are we also capturing? Yes. Okay. So the next slide, we go into the second part of the definition, right? Second part of the deep definition. So it is a type of research with roots in multiple methodological traditions that is based on what, right? Based on a systematic inquiry design paradigm in order to enter human worlds, to understand, to gather, to process and organize, to interpret and present data. It is systematic, meaning it is not ad hoc. It is not about research that is, you jump into the field and just go in and dive in and not knowing what you know and what to discover and just go on a fishing expedition and just catch whatever fish you can catch. No, it is a systematic inquiry. It is based on a design paradigm, and it has many different types of design paradigm depending on what roots, what methodological roots you employ, right? So it is it is a systematic approach. It is not approach that is not methodologically designed, right? It is also based on paradigms, based on different paradigms, of course. But they all, qualitative research is about entering the human worlds, not just physical, right? But human worlds. It's not about studying something that is not alive. It's about studying the human worlds. And we put a bracket S there, right? Maybe it's multiple worlds, multiple social reality. So social reality is also predefined, and in the same space you might find different social realities interpreted by different groups of people. So there's a possibility of one universe, one space more existing in one particular site of research, right? So and we put the picture there, right? That's a picture of Marvel comic character, Professor Xavier, who is a mind reader who can read mind, but he enters this computer chamber called Cerebro, accessing the different people throughout the world, right? So it's almost like that. When we enter qualitative research, it's about entering the human world, and different types of people, different in living in different contexts with their own history, with their own stories, right? And we are like this professor who wants to understand, who wants to go into their inner world, go into the social world, go into different social contexts to understand, right? To trace their stories, to get their narratives, to get that deep meanings, to get the interpretations. So this requires work. This requires systematic design in methodology. It's not just jump into this river and jump into this valley of nothingness, valley of everything, and try to catch what you can get, right? It's systematic. It is by design systematic. It is also about the human world. So we want to go in to understand, to gather, to process, organize, interpret, and then to present the data, right? So this is the second part of the deep definition of qualitative research. And let's go to the next part, right? So we talk about the human worlds, and we are capturing the qualitative, capturing, gathering, organizing, processing, and presenting qualitative data. What do you mean qualitative data? Data that has not been described. Maybe no one has described it yet. Or data that may go beyond numbers. Or data that is not easily measurable using numbers. Yeah? Not easily measurable using numbers. But may include or numbers. Or data that do not appear as a variable, not data or in a context that is not clear what the dependent variables are, what the independent variables are, or whether they are independent variables or dependent variables, or the interconnection, or is it a dialectical relations, it's not linear, it's multilinear. These are the realities in human worlds, right? Or data which relevancy is not yet determined. So sometimes in qualitative research, we go into a world and we do not know what the hierarchy of substantive powers are, hierarchy of what is important and what is not important yet. And establishing that hierarchy, establishing the relevancy, and establishing the sense of what is important, what is less important, that is actually, or could be, part of qualitative research as well. Because qualitative research is not about limiting ourselves to predefined categories, to predefined priorities of research. Sometimes we go in without that sense of priority of what the data, what data is important, what data is less important. Sometimes we go in to find out what's important, what is less important, interpreted by the social actors in there. So if you look at the pictures that we show in the slide, right, we have all this population in this world, right? And this big picture on the left-hand corner there, that you know, all kinds of people, all kinds of gender, living in all kinds of families, all kinds of communities, and we ask. Then this picture there, if you can highlight the picture of a man carrying a baby, right? Asking the question, I am happy. Are you happy? So we explore the idea of happiness. What influences, determines happiness, right? Is wealth connected to happiness? Is health connected to happiness? Is civilization connected, as we define civilization, or development, does development influence happiness? Is urbanization as indicator of development a good predictor of happiness, right? Or is it opposite, right? The less complex the life is, the easier people can be or pursue happiness, right? These are all qualitative research questions, right? And we look at, if we can enlarge a bit, like the picture there, family with high connectivity, family with high connectivity, husband and wife, presumably father and mother, with their children, their boy and a girl, they're highly connected, they're a family with high connectivity. But are they connecting, right? Are they connecting with one another? Is that the purpose of connectivity? Or is that how we define connectivity today? Is that what we want in our life? Is that how we measure development? Is that what makes quality of life? Is that how we define quality of life? How is this experience of sitting together at the dining table, having lunch or breakfast or dinner, while everyone sitting at the table is connected but not to each other, right? Now, we talk about wiring up the country, wiring up the society, going to the rural area and then wiring up there, right? Now in this under COVID pandemic, we talk about it's a must to have this digital connection, that students must be connected to these devices so that teachers can teach, so that professors and lecturers can communicate even from distance without having face-to-face connection. This high connectivity, what is the impact of this, right? Well, that left-hand corner, right, the bottom left-hand corner, that digital detox bootcamp. This is coming from a country that's one, if not the most wired country in the world. That is South Korea. They actually have digital detox boot camp, right? Basically, it's a camp, it's a rehabilitation center, or you can call it, right? To detox, part of detoxification process of getting rid of this addiction, this digital addiction among children, right? So we have that new phenomena, newly emerging patterns where there is digital addiction, right? That is qualitative research, right? And why is it that we have digital detox boot camps focusing on children, and the fault might lie with the parents or policy makers? Why can't we digital detox the parents or the lecturers or the policy makers? Why are we putting the blame on the children? Right? And that is actually a qualitative research as well, right? And what else? Let's look at the data of on qualitative research. What else can qualitative research explore? The concept of development. How do we define development, right? We have a picture there, land reclamation in Jakarta, right? What's the big issue? It's a political issue. It's been politicized, right? And then different political parties, different politicians debate about it, and then the people eventually are being persuaded to accept that reclamation is good, right? And it's about development, right? And see what's happening to Jakarta, and see, is that something good? Is that something good? And in Penang, we have the same story, right? Land reclamation is occurring rapidly, and we have those parties who are in opposition last time, who are against the government, right? Who are government being being cruel, not concerned, not caring about the people. Now they are doing this land reclamation, right? And they will show a model of development that is sustainable, caring, beautiful city, smart city, modeling after smart cities in the region, and what about the fishermen? Oh, they say no, the fishermen they're getting compensated. But what about the heritage of the fishing heritage? No, no, no. It doesn't matter as long as people are happy, as long as fishermen are happy, right? But this is the reclamation paradigm that is dominating the region right now. It's dominating Singapore. It's dominated Singapore for a very long time. Dominating Pulau Pinang, is dominating Jakarta. Is this what we want? Right? Is this the kind of development that we want? And that is a qualitative research question, right? The impact, the experience of living under this condition, that is a qualitative research question, right? And look at the other picture there in the mining in Lake Chini. The Chini spelling should be Chini. Tasik Chini, that's Lake Chini in Malaysia. The mining is affecting supposedly the lakes in Tasik Chini, in lakes in Chini, which is in Pahang State, and there are about 12 lakes there, right? Affecting the indigenous people, where the indigenous people are saying that, look, the forest is our bank, the forest, right, is our supermarket. You're taking away our food source, you're taking away our income, right? Because you have this development paradigm that is about destroy, it was about destroying the forest, right? This is the research, a qualitative research question as well. How does the development paradigm affecting the livelihoods, the life, the culture, the heritage of the people, right? And this is also a qualitative research, right? Let's see go back to this development idea, right? You see underneath the picture of land reclamation, Jakarta. That is a city in Japan, right? People walking around, hustle and bustle. Right? This is the image of productive city, productive people, productive economy. Perhaps that's what we want, or we want to have something like Hong Kong as well, right? In this developing economies want to be like Hong Kong. There's, by the way, a picture of housing in Hong Kong there on the right of city of Japan. There. You see that people are living in this big high-rise housing projects, right? And that is being replicated in many cities in the world. What is the experience of people living in these housing estates, right? Who are living in here? What happened to the family? What happened to the space of the family? These are all research questions that are related to qualitative research. These are so we do not know what is being valued by the people living in there. We do not know what is valued by the children who are digitally addicted to their gadgets. So we want to establish what's important, what's not important, the meaning, the insights. We want to know how the process of children becoming, from the normal ordinary children, become addicted to games and devices, right? Not just children, right? Adults too, right? And why are we blaming the children? We are not blaming the adults, right? So these are all issues that qualitative research can address, right? So at the end, let's see number 6, right? Producing what? Producing qualitative description. They are deep. There's not about big data alone. Big data is about collecting data that existing out there, right? And existing in real time sometimes, right? But the data has existed. Sometimes the data has not existed yet. The data are still hidden. Sometimes there are newly emerging data that is not captured and not captured by big data. So we need deep data produced by qualitative research in order to understand newly emerging realities, newly emerging patterns of behaviors, newly emerging contexts. Deep data from deep qualitative research can produce this type of findings. Sometimes these data are hidden and we want to capture them. Sometimes this phenomena has not been seen yet, but the phenomena has existed, but it's not captured by concepts or theories out there. So we need this inductive or abductive type research that is based on qualitative research to capture these realities. And they can produce a more comprehensive picture, a more comprehensive set of data that is not limited to what is measurable, to what is quantifiable, right? And because the concepts, the constructs, the variables have not been defined yet, because the social actors are defining the variables, because the patterns are shifting, are emerging, right? And it's not being perceived, have not been theorized yet, right? And this is the strength, the beauty of qualitative data, of qualitative research, right? Let's go to the next part of the definition, of deep definition. So we talk about qualitative data that is more comprehensive, that's deeper, right? About what? About a theory, a phenomenon, a model, a system, a process. A qualitative research can produce new theories or extend theories, right? And can give comprehensive understanding about phenomena, about model, about system, about process. What is the process of a user using a new device, right? And that can be captured by qualitative research. About a paradigm, about a set of practices, right? About typologies. What are the typologies of Iranian students studying in Malaysia? That can be captured by qualitative research, by looking at abductive research, data, findings that is born from the social actors themselves. And then we can organize the data, we can develop new typologies. That is qualitative research. That is the strength of qualitative research. Or social, cultural, or psychological, or behavioral, or historical map of a social space. You can do a mapping, a type of cultural mapping, or a psychological mapping, or behavioral mapping of a social space. We can look at the social space, and we say what type of behaviors or behavioral patterns exist in this space. We can look at a community, and we say what type of behavioral patterns exist in this community, what kind of political patterns, what kind of cultural practices exist about wedding ceremonies, about engagement ceremonies, right? And these are all research questions that is based on qualitative research, right? Or the space itself, right, is something for us to define, to explore. It could be a culture, it could be a community, it could be a city, it could be a building, a dormitory, a neighborhood, a country, a polity, an individual, the individual psychological space of an individual, or a family, or a behavioral pattern, or organizational structural space, right? There's space within organization. We want to see maybe what is the private space, what is the public space in an organization. We can look at a restaurant, what is called the front stage, what is the backstage of a restaurant, right? But then we say the backstage of a restaurant might be much more haphazard, might be much more disorganized. And suddenly they go to the front stage where they serve the customers. They speak the different language. Their behaviors are different. The way people are treated are different, right? But the backstage, where they become much more real, much more original, right? But then you go to the Japanese restaurant where the backstage is also part of the front stage. When it's much organized, you see the hygienic practices of the backstage, the art of cooking, and you see that being replicated even in fast food restaurant where they make the burger and they demonstrate how they make the burger. Domino's Pizza Domino's Pizza in Penang. You can see how they make the pizza, how they make the dough and all that. And that's part of the front stage, which is interesting, where the front stage and backstage become one, right? So you ask the question, is there a backstage in a Japanese restaurant? If there is one, what is the backstage of the Japanese restaurant, right? That is a qualitative research question. Or economic tendency, or a structural tendency. So those are spaces in qualitative research, right? So qualitative research is rich, is strong, it can go deep, it can go multi-pronged, it can go with many lenses and eventually look at which lenses are more appropriate to use, right? So these are the different dimensions of the deep definition of qualitative research, right? So let's go to something that is more substantive, even more substantive, right? You might ask the question after understanding or when you begin to understand the deep definition of qualitative research, you might ask the question, the next slide, right? Why qualitative research? Why qualitative research, right? I would like to answer that by giving you as many reasons as possible, as many ifs as possible, right? Why qualitative research? If you want to study, example, a social context, a phenomenon, a paradigm, if what you want to study is not being described by anyone yet, if a phenomenon is not being described by anyone yet, if the social context has not been described by anyone yet, if the paradigm is not being described by anyone yet, that is a qualitative research. Do you know that before sexual harassment was conceptualized as a paradigm, sexual harassment was not being captured by the legal system? But once it is being captured as a paradigm, as a phenomenon, as a legal act that can be prosecuted, right? And then people start to see what have always been there before, right? Because they have this new set of lenses, which is developed by qualitative research, right? Or number two, or if the subject matter is not easy to analyze using numbers, qualitative research can go in. You can employ qualitative research as a methodology. Or if it is not clear what is relevant or what is important in the site of your research, right? If it's not clear, you're not sure what is relevant yet, you can employ qualitative research. Or if you want to understand the reality from the informant's own insights, meaning not yours, not what is being predetermined, what is being theorized out there. You want the informants to come up with their own theories. You want to use the informants to develop a theory of eating, the theory of sleeping, a theory of why people become obese, or why people become drug addicts, or why people become digital addicts, or why people become smokers, right? That is grounded theory can help you with that as well. Or number 5, if you want to investigate deeper meanings of experiences in a phenomena, you want to know what is the essence of the experience of that phenomenon, because different people experience things differently, and you might even see there are many different interpretations of the same phenomena, right? And that is qualitative research. Or if you want to build a new theory grounded on the data that you collect through theorizing, qualitative research can help you. Right? A new type of theorizing, qualitative research can help you. Or if you want to formulate typologies of social realities or human behaviors, right? What are the types of gamblers, right? Also, when you look at patterns, you look at realities, you say, oh, there are 4 types of gamblers, right? The high risk, low risk, the different, you put in the matrices and you find that there are typologies of gamblers, for instance. Or if you want to research on a corporate organizational culture in a particular context, right? You want to see what happens when 2 companies together become one. What happened to the organizational culture? What happened to the people practicing, to the business practices, to the organizational practices, to human resource practices in marketing, in design, in accounting, right? That is qualitative research. Or if you want to interpret text of writers from the past, you want to understand scriptures, you want to understand diaries, you want to understand blogs, you want to understand vlogs, you want to understand travel logs, you can use qualitative research. It is fascinating when you look at the whole idea of interpreting text, right? That is also fascinating. Or if you want to study patterns of terrorism by Israelis against Palestinians under the apartheid system, right? So terrorism is often associated with the Arabs or the Muslims, right? How about patterns of terrorism by the state, right? By, for instance, Israelis, by Israel, or United States, right? What are the patterns of terrorism committed by big powers? Qualitative research, right? They always, usually we just look at the small little dudes or these powers out there who want to challenge, who want to have coup d'etats. Right? How about the established states, right? We can look at patterns of terrorism and we can analyze them. It is qualitative research, right? Or if you want to examine historical or evolutionary transformations of events, how a small school transformed into a little college and eventually transform into a university and then transform in the top private university like Mohammad University in Indonesia there, right? Or a few or 3 or 4 universities in Indonesia. How that happened? That is qualitative research as well. Or you want to see how a conflict turns into peace, conflict resolution, peace building, or how peace turns into conflict. That is qualitative research. Or you want to see formation of identity or formation of policies, qualitative research as well. Or number 12, if you want to carry out a case study of important figures, place, organization, community, qualitative research as well. So qualitative research, you can go many different places, many different spaces. You can go deep, you can go wide, you can go multi-pronged, right? Or, number 13, if you want to analyze a series of historical events based on people's own narratives, right? So you can look at narratives and analysis, right? And you can see how history changes, how a particular event emerges, right? And then you can collect different oral histories, right? And form understanding, qualitative research that's rich, right? I mean, you have people telling their own stories, so the history from the people's point of view. Or number 14, if you want to project possible future scenarios based on perspective of different groups of stakeholders. So if you talk about scenarios, right? Future scenarios of digital learning. If you go to the rich schools, they might project a different scenario of the future about e-learning, all right? If you go to the middle class, right, the professionals, they say, oh yes, we can do it, but we got to share the laptop, the devices, right? So they're kind of the first group will excel, succeed. The second scenario, well, they struggle a bit, but they can survive. You know? So maybe the third group, you go to the ghettos, to go to the urban poor. They say we are sinking, right? We're always left behind. Sometimes we can do it, sometimes you cannot do it. Sometimes there's internet connection, sometimes there's not internet connection. And then you go to the down road, in the extreme cases, right? The people who have no digital devices, they're completely extinct from the learning process. So you can project different future scenarios about e-learning, digital learning, cyber schools, all that based on different groups of stakeholders. And you see different trajectories of the future, different visions, utopian vision, dystopian pictures, visions of the future, right? This can be done through qualitative research, right? So let's bring our discussion to something that is more reflective, right? The next slide. So let's adopt a bit of some of the Bruce Lee's philosophy, right? Bruce Lee said, be like water. 似水, be like water, right? He said, empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water. If you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. If you put water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. If you put water in a teapot, it becomes a teapot. Water can flow, but water can also crash, right? So the idea of qualitative research, at least part of it, is about emptying your mind, letting the qualitative richness of experience, of data, of findings, of knowledge, of narratives inform you, educate you, be part of your learning process of understanding the social context, understanding the human worlds, understanding human experience. So it is shapeless, but it's still strategic, it is still strong, right? So, be like water, like Bruce Lee said. But then you can go even beyond. The next slide, please. Be Aquaman, be part of the water, sail into the sea, dive into the ocean and swim with the fishes, immerse yourself, observe, feel and embrace the life and the learning, and then reflect, and then retell the story. That is the beauty of qualitative research. That is the power of qualitative research. So this is the final slide, right? I say, let there be flowering of knowledge. Let there be flowering of the mind. Like, flowers blooming everywhere, different colors, right? There's a process to that.